Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed, pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is actually going to be split over 2 episodes. So this is part 1 and next week will be part 2. And let me tell you why. Because our resentment podcast went a little crazy and had some big ripples out in your world. So the world of mothers just like you and me and Bridgie. And there was a flurry of response. And one of those responses was a beautiful email. And I'm going to read you briefly that, and then that will make sense on why we have chosen to answer this listener's question over 2 separate podcasts that are extremely, just to the point, tips that are going to make it easy and simple without you getting lost in all of the language and the philosophy and the tangents that Bridgie and I can go on. So these are 2 weeks of tips that are quick, easy, strategic, ready for you to implement straight away. So let me read you just pieces of this beautiful listener's email. Let me remind you, we love your communication, your emails. Please keep them coming and talking to us about what you would like in the podcast. This listener says, I have a 5 and a 3-year-old and I realise I am maybe not empowering them as much as I could be, partly because in the moment it's just easier to do shit myself or let them sleep in my bed, and partly because of my perfect mother story of needing to be everything to everyone all of the time. And literally, Bridgie, who can't relate to every single one.
Oh my God, yes.
Right.
Singing to the
Right. I'm wondering if you could share or unpack some ways you empower your kids and some age-appropriate suggestions for different ages of things to start upskilling them in. I get a lot of pushback when I do ask them, e.g., put your toys away, put rubbish in the bin, sit down at the table when we eat, and they just refuse or say, no, mummy help, or mummy do it, etc., and just flat out refuse. I find in these moments I revert to fear-based parenting. If you don't do XYZ, there will be no dessert. Or if you don't put it away, I'll put it in the bin. I hear these words fly out of my mouth as I'm saying them, but it's not how I want the story to go. It's obviously how I was parented, although I don't actually remember what my mum did, but it's so automatic. So she's already stringing together, based on the conversations we have in our podcast. Yeah, the fact that you're on autopilot and that this flies out is a trauma response. So I'd love some tips, and also just love listening to how you guys do things to spark my own ideas and get me out of the stuck ways of parenting to broaden my perspective on different ways of doing things. So how magnificent is that email? Because I was like, yep, I know it.
Yeah, so good. And just, age-old questions that we all find ourselves examining at different stages of our kids and different stages of our value shifting as a family. So it's absolutely great to be diving into these, and I'm super pumped.
So today what we are doing is 5 tips to enhance your kids' contribution in the home. Step 1, I am handballing straight to you, Bridgie, because you are a master at it, and that is play.
Oh, yeah, because why try to force shit up a hill when your child's language is play? And I particularly say that this is true for the younger child. So most of what I do with my toddler is play-based in terms of moving her where I want her to go. So what that looks like is, for instance, it's getting dressed, because we got to look at, for toddlers particularly, it's the transition stuff that can be hard. It's the, they're kind of stamping their foot, they're stuck where they are. They need help to move to the next step, or they need help to be able to contribute. So helping them meet what we want from them in a language that they are highly literate in and are seeking is the way. So what that can look like is, if you want them to help you put the clothes in the hamper, right? Then we might fly from their bedroom to the hamper. Like I might pick her up and we'll fly there. Or if she doesn't want to do the thing that I'm asking her to help with, then I might say to her, let's do 3 piggyback rides around the house, and then I would love you to do that thing. And then I've met her, and so she can meet me better. So I love play for helping meet the connection need that children so often require from us, particularly when it comes up, like our requests sometimes to them when we're exhausted or over it can feel disconnecting when it's coming from an energy of like, I need you to. Whereas play helps say, I'll meet you to do this thing together. And then they start to take that on board. They start to, when we've given them that outer resourcing to do the thing that we want them to do, they then build that as an inner resource that as they grow, they know to do.
Step 2 would be get clear on your family values. This is a conversation that we had way back when our first 2 were tiny. Oh, I didn't even know, like 2 and 3. And I did up a poster that they decorated, and we literally from those ages were having conversations around what our family value system is and how we contribute to those values and why those values are important, how they overflow into benefits for them, for us, for all of us, and what feels really good in our family home. So I would say get really clear on what your family values are. And for us, one of the main values is respect, that we respect the things that we have in our house, because that we know that that thing is worth our hours and our life and our time. And, all of these things, they are, everything that's in our house has a purpose. And sometimes that purpose is beauty because it feels good. And sometimes that purpose is something else. But we are honouring and devotional and caretaking of these things that give back to us in our life. So we have respect for things. We don't jump on tables. We don't jump on couches. I know that that's not everybody's viewpoint. That's cool. It doesn't have to be. But for my nervous system, and I come from a background of poverty. So having beautiful things was never a possibility in my childhood. So when I consciously buy things, so I don't just, buy a whole heap of shit from the cheap stores. Whatever is in my home has a very specific purpose, whether it's a long-term memory or it's an experience. So everything has an emotional content in my home. It's energy. So I talk about that with them, that these things we get to do this with, and we, it provides us with these experiences, and we treat them in this way because the caretaking is just like we caretake of our body, and we caretake of our friends, and we caretake of the spaces that other people create because it's meaningful and beautiful and respectful of them. So I do have conversations around what respect looks like in different places and spaces. So you want to jump and go nuts on your own home couch, fine. But that doesn't then translate to jumping on other people's couches and Nana's couch, and just really early on having those conversations around different family values.
Yeah,
that's fine. But these are our values. That's beautiful that that's their values, but these are ours. And they go, but so-and-so does this and so-and-so. It doesn't matter because these are our values and they're their values. They're not better or worse. They're just values. And at the end of the day, we're here to respect self and other. And that looks like lots of different ways of loving everybody in all of their different evolutions. So I know that sounds convoluted, but actually at the end of the day, it's really simple. We're here to respect each other. That means respecting emotions. What do those things mean? We're here to respect how we show up and speak to each other. What does respectful language look like between us? What are the words that we're okay with and what are the words we're not okay with? And how do we repair if we've done something like name calling? So under the big umbrella of respect comes a whole lot of actually conscious parenting tools without me needing to go, oh, well, this is rule number 578. No, this is just respect. This is what it looks like to love. And it's okay that sometimes it rubs you and you feel a little bit, angsty about it. It's okay. Let's move through that, because what we're coming back to is this point of respect, and that we broaden what that means. Not just I only respect you in the ways that I want to be respected. Respect looks like lots of different things, and that's a conversation of consent that builds and stacks across all of life.
This podcast is brought to you by Honey Club and Reimagining Motherhood. Your spaces for intimacy and feminine embodiment, and conscious parenting and inspiring motherhood. Come join us at julietanner.love and bridgetwood.life. Yeah, and that values conversation is something that needs to happen again and again and again, because as each person goes out into the world and shifts and changes in response to that world, you're always invited into recalibrating what respect looks like, what your values are, and allow that to be an ongoing conversation.
Yes. So get really clear on what your family values are, because when it comes to kids contributing in the home, it's really easy to tie that back to here's the way that we love each other, here's the way that we meet each other, here's the values of this family unit. And that's an incredibly powerful, actually intrinsic motivator, because we want to belong to the family group that we originate from. We have an intrinsic human need to belong, and it's painful when we don't. So part of that is also just bringing it back to here's how we belong in this space. Here's how we belong together. Not getting attached, not getting needy about it, but just being willing to continuously have that conversation like you do for 1,000. It might take you 1,000 times of going, look before you cross the road. And then one day they stop and they look before they cross the road. It's the same thing, only it's a continuous reminder and returning to the values that you have as a human who's cooperating in this family system. Number 3 would be speak in their values, which is ever so slightly different. Do you want to lead this one, Bridge?
Yeah. So speaking in their values means that we ask for what we want in a way that they can understand and in a way that is meaningful to them, because all of us are filtering our environment and our world based on what we value. And sometimes, we can see the thing that's irritating to us that our child hasn't done, and they can't even see it because they're just filtering it out. So having the curiosity and the even respect to recognize that maybe they're not seeing that thing that's really bothering me. How can I orient to them to what I need and would like from them in a way that is respectful to what's also important to them? So that might be, I can see you're really interested in this stage of the game that you're at. When that stage is finished, can you please come and address the problem that I'm seeing in your bedroom right now? And so that you're asking them for consent basically to wrap up what's important to them so that they can come and orient to what you need from them, and you can have a conversation about that thing. Because this is where the modeling comes into force, right? Like we want our children to be collaborative and consider other people's needs and contribute. And that requires us to also see them as whole and respect them and their time in the way that we would like them to do that for us. So I really see looking at their values and looking at what they're lit up by and seeing that as something that I can honor, to then lead from that place, lead from, I see you and this really needs to happen. How can we make that work?
I really love that. That's a beautiful lead through transitional states as well. That really allows that, doesn't it? I also think while we're speaking on their values, just really have like the cleanup and the creation of a space that honours their value system. You also cannot underestimate. Like I always think kids never play with toys until I pick out a few things and I display them on a shelf or something, and then boom, they're interested in them again, because there's a space of beauty without clutter where they can focus and immerse in the thing that's really meaningful to them right now. So never underestimate packing up a whole heap of shit and toys, boxing them away in the shed, and just keeping out what's hugely important to them and creating a space, a corner. We've had quiet reading corners, we've had homework corners, like all sorts of things. I'd also say as my kids get older, they're more and more aware of spaces of beauty and how they want their friends to feel in those spaces. So now that, and I've always wanted to have the house that everyone can come to. And so I can see for my older two, particularly my son, that he's always had a huge value on order and clean spaces. It's never been a problem to get him to clean because he intrinsically loves a clean space. Like, he loves it to the same degree that my second born loves feminine chaos. Like, she literally loves a pile of clothes because she can see all the colors and the textures. I get it. I get mask, please give me nothing but clean white space and ordered shoes on a shelf, nothing else. And femme, I want all of the things and all of the textures. How do we blend this and come to some sort of middle ground here? So my daughter has, hanging plants in her room and things on her wall and beautiful. How do we create a space that gives her that feedback without it needing to be a pile of clothes on the floor? And my son, who wants super clean space, how do I get everything there's my pen, everything that I possibly can up on the shelf so there's nothing on the floor and everything has a home. So there's nothing left lying around going, it has no home, nowhere to put it. So it becomes mess on the floor. And as they have friends over, now they want the house that looks beautiful, that their friends walk into and feel a vibe with. That's not because that's come from pressure. That's not because I'm leading that. That's because they go, I know how beautiful it feels when it feels like this. We have created a space of beauty and nourishment. And when it returns to that, it gives us nourishment that allows us to open our hearts and fully be present to our friends. And so they actually lead the cleanup process now when they have play dates and friends over, which is actually quite regularly. So I'm like, this is fantastic because we have regular cleanups led by them simply because they've gotten used to how good their nervous system feels in a space of beauty. So get clear on their values. Tip number 4, make it simple, chunk it down. If instead of going, clean up your room, can you pick up these 3 things and put them in this box, particularly if you have a child with additional needs who processes really differently, who perhaps gets overwhelmed super quickly. Like, whenever you're dealing with a child that has and is younger, right, is a toddler even, can you pick up 3 toys and put them in here as opposed to the whole floor? Great. Can you find 3 red things and put them here? So just change it, make it really simple, because particularly my third will get completely overwhelmed very, very easily. So I can't say to her, I can say to my 4-year-old, can you clean your room and put all your clothes away? Boom, she'll get it done. But my 8-year-old, I can't do that with. So I have to be able to walk into the space with her, like her bedroom, and just go over and go, okay, I can see that there's this and there's this and there's this. So I just want you to focus on this one thing and put it in this one place for me. She does that. I go, that's great. Now I walk back in and I pick the next thing. So it's this very gentle leading step by step. Yeah, of course it's more painful than being able to go clean your room and I don't have to be present to it. Yeah, it is. But the fact that I can take a little more conscious time to step it out with her means that it becomes easy for her to do rather than this big overwhelming thing that she cannot do. And as she grows and becomes an adult, will choose not to do. How do I empower the adult with the steps instead of all of the things and I don't know where to start and start 5,000 things and I never get anywhere? Too much, femme. Let's just take a minute. What does it look like to look at our space? What does it look like to pick the one thing and then stay focused on the one thing to put it in the focused one point? Because or else kids that are neurodiverse, they're going everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So slow it down, chunk it down to age and need. Step number 4, have a celebration afterwards. How do you do this?
Yes, I love this. So this is a big one because this is part of training the nervous system for the reward, right? For the feel good after the hard slog, maybe in their perception. So for us, it might be, I'm getting out this awesome thing you've been waiting for, or we're going to go out and do this, like get an ice cream, or we're going to go to the beach, or we're going to go do something. Or it might simply be, we're going to have a dance party, or I pick whatever it is that I know that they're loving right now, so that there's something that they can look forward to and get themselves through the hard thing with. And again, in doing that, we get to celebrate how it feels to be in the space after we've done that hard work, and we get to enjoy the feeling, a little bit like what you've said with your older two about being in the energy of that cleaner space. What about you?
We usually do, I don't tend to do rewards in terms of like, well, then you get your lolly or then you get your whatever.
Yeah.
I tend to go, it's connection at the end. So we do this thing together and then at the end we bathe in it together. So whether that's, well, then we'll sit down and we'll play a game of Uno together, or we'll sit down and watch a movie and have popcorn together. So some sort of connecting experience. So particularly because I know whenever we do a family cleanup, my third, despite the fact that I slow it down and walk her through it, she still will hate it. Like I don't walk into this going, this is always going to be hard for her because it's hard physically and emotionally. She doesn't have the bandwidth. So something that brings her back into a slowed down, relaxed, connected nervous system space is actually what all of us need at the end of that. The people that are psyched about it and the people that are struggling about it, what we need is a celebration that says comfort and connectedness at the end of a cleanup, because that's what they'll be imprinting. Oh, this equals comfort and connection, not this equals pain, suffering, and disconnection.
Yeah.
We are blueprinting continuously our human brain. So what are we connecting it with?
And I constantly just love that reminder, because that's the whole thing. Like, yes, we might have all these ideas and yes, we might have all these triggers of our own, but ultimately in every action and inaction, we are creating imprints. So are the ones we're creating functional or dysfunctional?
Right. Exactly. So we really hope that in this very quick, simple, easy, step-by-step layout process that you have some super tangible and easy tips to begin or to try and implement. And we would love to hear how you go, or if you need more, or if it gets a little stuck, how we can meet you in those places. So please reach out in all of the places and spaces, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. And Bridgie Wood, what have we got going on with you?
Yes, Reimagining Motherhood. We are doing all things rage, repair, and resourcing yourself in motherhood, because even that resentment podcast last week, spiked some stuff in our membership, and definitely talking a lot about how to manage those feelings and how to move into repair in a way that is really sustainable and not just on this constant guilt and shame track. So that's what's happening in my world. What about you, Jules?
In my world, I'm running Lovers School at the moment, so there's nothing to jump into, but what you can grab is your free guidebook on Set Sexy Up, because we know how you set a mother up during her day is how she's set up to be intimate at night. So you might as well set yourself up to succeed and prioritize relationships. So Set Sexy Up is a completely free downloadable guide just from my heart to yours to say, you can do this, girlfriend. It doesn't have to be either or, it gets to be and. You just have to be a little savvy about the steps you're putting in place to do that. So you can grab that at julietenner.love/set it up.
Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.